Alright guys, so this is going to be a general overview of how to glaze. So first of all, you're going to have your clay piece. This might be different than what clay piece you actually have, but I want to talk to you about it. So you have the back of your clay piece wherever it touches the ground. And then you have pretty much the whole rest of your piece. You will glaze everything except for wherever your clay piece touches the ground. So that means you'll glaze the sides, you'll glaze in between all of the little textural areas. Make sure you get in all of that little texture and the inside of your clay piece. It's really important that at the very end that you don't wind up having any white of your clay showing through. Otherwise it won't be covered in glaze and it'll be white at the very end. So you have to make sure that you start out with 3 coats of glaze. It can be 3 different colors, but it has to be 3 coats of glaze. And if you're going to have 3 different colors, they need to be close to each other on the color wheel. So you could do like red, orange, and yellow, but I probably wouldn't go with like red, yellow, and blue, because then they're going to mix together in the kiln and become gray or black. Okay, so when glazing, I'm going to recommend that you keep, so if you have your bucket of glaze, if the paintbrush is down in there, it's a good habit to get in of holding the paint container and stirring it a little bit before you use it, because sometimes the glaze settles at the bottom. So I'm going to mix it, and then I'm going to pull it out, and then wipe the sides of the paintbrush, because it likes to get a lot of paint in there. So wipe the side of your paintbrush with all that extra glaze. If you accidentally put glaze in the wrong spot, you can use a wiping station, which is on the drawers, to wipe it off. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to just kind of let the paintbrush do the work, and I'm going to kind of dab the glaze on there. And notice I'm getting glaze on the table. That's totally okay. And I'm going to make sure that when I'm painting, I'm turning my clay piece. You need smaller paintbrushes, we have them, but that's what I'm doing. I'm kind of dabbing it, and make sure you also paint the edges. Okay, so I'm going to again dab it. I can actually hold it up and do this. And again, if I get paint on the bottom of it, I can just take a wet sponge at the washing station and wash it off. Also, make sure I get in between any areas, and again, paint the edges. If you're afraid that you're going to paint the bottom, put it down. Be careful, because if you've painted an area of your table, like I have, and then you just put your clay piece down into it, then you're going to get clay on the back of your person, or the back of your creation. Okay, so I've glazed this, and this was just 1 coat. While I'm waiting for this to dry, I'm actually not going to clean this off right away, because I'm probably going to get glaze on it a couple more times. So I'm actually going to wait until the end. So I look around, I notice that pretty much everything, there's just a couple spots that don't have glaze, and I'll go back and I'll touch those up before moving on. Again, glaze is just a big fancy word for paint that we use just for clay. Okay, so that's my first coat. And it's okay if you can't see your texture anymore. Texture is what something feels like, remember that. Because at the very end, when you put it in the kiln, which is a big hot oven where this goes at the very end, you're going to have, it's going to all become liquid, and it's going to settle in there and become really nice. So while you're waiting, we'll move on to the next step. So I'm going to paint the inside. So when you're painting the inside of it, you need to make sure that you're actually filling in everything. And I'm going to use a color that you could probably actually see. So I'm getting a lot of paint, more paint than I would probably say when you're painting a picture. Pretty much filling up your paintbrush so it's almost dripping off, and then putting it in there so that you can really make sure everything gets covered with the color that you want. Move this around, and again, more paint is better with this. You don't want it dripping off, but alright, there we go. Okay, so I would keep going, so I have 3 coats of glaze on everything. So then, let me show you guys how to wipe stuff off. With a damp sponge, not a super wet sponge, I'm going to hold my clay piece, and I'm going to wipe it. I'm going to rub, I'm going in kind of like a circular motion to kind of rub it off. And if no more is coming off, that means you just have a lot over there, so I'll flip the sponge over. And I'll keep going until all of the edges are clean. Because if you don't wipe off the bottom, when this goes in the kiln, so the big hot oven where this goes to get fired, when it goes in the kiln, the glaze becomes molten glass, so liquid glass. And then when it cools, it sticks to whatever it's touching, so it almost acts like glue. So I'm going to keep wiping it off until I don't see any more. It's okay if sometimes it stains it, that's not going to really matter, but you just don't want to see any large chunks. So I'm happy with how this is. I'm going to flip it over, and then at this point I would turn it in to whatever box that it came out of. You only turn it in when there's no little bit showing. I want to give you an example of what is not finished. So this is an example of something that's not finished. If I look at it, I can still see inside my texture a lot of little tiny holes. Do you guys see all those? How that's still white and I painted it green? So for it to actually look finished, I would have to get more paint on my paintbrush and really go down into all of those little cracks and paint the whole thing. So again, don't wipe off the bottom of your clay piece until the very end so you don't have to do it multiple times. But as a recap, everything has to have 3 coats. 3 coats. You can use different colors, but make sure that they're close to each other on the color wheel. Make sure you are painting the inside of whatever you have and not painting wherever it sits on the back, because then it'll stick. If you guys have any questions, feel free to ask, but I think that's basically everything that you're going to be working with. Use the glaze chart, and remember that the colors aren't as they appear. You really have to pay attention to what the bottle says, and really pay attention to the color that you want on the glaze chart. So, if you have any questions, let us know.